Opium is a good gauge of a failing state. It thrives on corruption, weak law enforcement, war and poverty. According to the UN, opium production in Afghanistan rose from 149 tons in 2001, the last year of Taliban rule, to nearly 8,000 tons in 2008. In Afghanistan, however, there's no need for statistics. Acres of poppies flank the roads in Helmand and Kandahar province. Raw opium is weighed in the markets of Jalalabad, and heroin smoked in the back streets of Kabul.
Drugs and corruption were always in Afghanistan, but not to this extent. Before the Soviet invasion, 87% of the population were involved in farming. The farming base was completely destroyed, so it left the door wide open for quick cash product, and the quick cash product was opium. Today, you know, we've become almost a narco state.
Afghanistan produces 90% of the world's opium, a multi-billion-dollar industry equivalent to half the country's legal GDP. Little wonder that scandals have implicated many in government, including the president's own brother.
One of the myths in the West is that the Taliban runs the drug production and all that money that comes from drug production is the Taliban's money. In fact, the cultivation of poppy is about a $4 billion industry. The Taliban gets some of that money, but actually the biggest beneficiary are corrupt officials of the Afghan government.
This may explain why attempts to destroy the crop have mostly been sporadic and half-hearted. Just enough to turn the farmers against the international community, but never enough to stem the flow of this valuable political commodity. After the Bonn conference, Britain was given responsibility for counter-narcotics. When British ISAF troops were finally deployed to the opium heartland of Helmand, they met with stiff resistance. The necessity of protecting the poppy guarantees a long and bitter struggle. Although its motives have been questioned, in 2001, the Taliban government have been successful in all but eradicating opium production. Now, men bearing their name are fighting to defend the industry.
First of all, you know, I don't like the word Talib or Taliban is plural, Talib is one. Talib is a very religious, you know, it's a religious student. He's not there to murder, maim, and, you know, and wrap dynamite on himself. But the Taliban that you have today, the ones that come from all over the world, their purpose here is only one thing. They are not here for religious belief. They are not here for political belief. They are here for the belief of the dollar. They are making their money from the trade of drugs in Afghanistan.
With money comes power, and the strength of the insurgency was demonstrated in April 2008, when they struck at the very heart of government. At the end of 2008, outgoing President George W. Bush made his last visit to the two countries that had defined his period in office. Iraq chose to offer the president one last surprise. 2 days later, his reception was to be very different when Karzai awarded him Afghanistan's highest order of bravery, a medal named after the king who threw off the last remnants of British influence, made for a curious epitaph.
I've yelled at times,
But George Bush had been a good friend to Karzai, if not to the people of Afghanistan.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Who are in attendance.
The public statements of his successor, President Obama, suggest this policy may be reversed.
For 6 years, Afghanistan has been denied the resources that it demands because of the war in Iraq. Now we must make a commitment that can accomplish our goals.
Militarily, the US has made a firm commitment seeking to adopt the policy that appears to have achieved results in Iraq. But Afghanistan is a very different country.
All the surge has done is to expand the target. The minute they announced the surge, the chatterboxes on the internet on the Taliban side was Afghanistan is under attack. We need recruits. We need volunteers to go save a fellow Islamic nation. The British soldiers are complaining, this is never ending. We continuously fight them. We are not getting anywhere because they're getting fresh recruits all the time.
More troops means more casualties, both civilian and military.
Roger, copy. Danger close.
An announcement has been made to limit close air support for ISAF forces on the ground. But after 8 years of airstrikes, it may already be too late.
There is a certain naivete sometimes in Western policymakers who say, oh, we did a lot of things that annoyed the Afghans. If we just stop doing those things, they won't be annoyed anymore. Well, someone's kids are still dead, because of an airstrike that we mounted. So you're not going to win those people over. But I think what we can do is we may not be able to clean that up, but we can certainly do better from now on.
It's difficult to win hearts and minds after bombs and bullets. But increasingly, this is the only option if the international community is ever to extricate itself from Afghanistan.
We need a change. We need to talk to the true Afghans. With the Afghans that are inside Afghanistan, these are not Talibs, these are Afghans. They were here yesterday, they are here today, and they will be here 1,000 years from now. If we will only try to better their life so that they have food in their stomach, they can have clothes on their back, they can have a roof over their head, these people will turn against the foreign Talib once if they know that they are being supported by the coalition and the government.
But 5 years after he was first elected, and nearly 8 years since he came to power, it is Karzai who needs the support as he faces the polls again. This time it's a referendum, not only on the man himself, but on his style of big tent politics. In the 2004 election campaign, Karzai dropped the Northern Alliance warlord Mohammed Fahim as his running mate. By bringing him back as his vice presidential candidate, he's once again sent out an uncompromising message, and one that he was happy to vocalize.
Choosing of Fahim Khan as my vice president was a decision that I made for the good of the country, for the unity of the country, and for the strength of an Afghanistan in which it has a government that is Afghan and not influenced from outside.
Battle lines are once again being drawn.
A lot of people are dissatisfied. They are unhappy. But Afghans are very slow to change, regardless of what's been going on. So they say, I'm going to vote for Karzai for that reason. A new person, we do not know what he's going to do. Mr. Karzai has been the president for the last 7 years. He has learned now, his stomach is full, his body is secure, and now we will see the positive results coming to us. If somebody else comes, he's new to the job, to the business, by the time he learns, we're going to suffer for the next 5 years.
This better the devil you know attitude may have worked for Karzai in 2004, but this time around there appear to be alternatives, both for Afghans and the international community. 41 men and women have put their names to the ballot, but 2 stand out. Ashraf Ghani, a fellow Pashtun who shares many of the qualities that first attracted the West to Karzai, and Abdullah Abdullah, who served as foreign minister for both the Northern Alliance and Karzai. He's seen as a Tajik, but with the Pashtun vote potentially split, ethnicity may cease to be the determining factor in choosing a leader.
I think this time the presence of people will be less in the elections because people's heart are cool, especially in the south. Because of the fighting, the election will almost not exist. Security should have been brought first and then the election. The problems of Afghanistan cannot be solved by elections alone.
I see dark clouds over Afghanistan right now. The people have reached their limit. Unless major changes come, and the policies of the West, the policies of the coalition, the Americans and the British and the others, to involve the people of Afghanistan in the decisions of their life, we are going to see a major problem regardless of who becomes the president of Afghanistan within a year, year and a half.
America called it Operation Enduring Freedom. But despite the thousands who've lost their lives and the billions spent in aid, in some ways Afghanistan finds itself much as it was in 2001. An unpopular government holds sway in Kabul, women still wear the burqa, journalists and aid workers are intimidated and murdered.
They would cut our heads.
All this might be forgiven if Afghans had their liberty. But with bombs exploding on the streets of the capital, it's clear that it is their freedom above all that's not endured.